The individual has always had to struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. To be your own man is a hard business. If you try it, you'll often be lonely and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. Rudyard Kipling from Kipling's Diary. We live in the age of adult children. Everyone desires freedom, but no one wants responsibility. The truth is, you can't have freedom without taking responsibility for your own life. Do you want to live alone, own a car, start a business where you can do what you want, when you want? Well, all of that requires sacrifice and responsibility. Every form of freedom carries a certain degree of responsibility. But what happens if you manage to get freedom without responsibility? That's only possible if someone else gives you that freedom and takes on the responsibility for your needs, just like parents do in childhood. So, the child gets freedom without responsibility. But if you're an adult, as tempting as that may sound, you honestly don't want it. Because freedom without responsibility stunts your growth and turns you into a slave. Let me give a rather banal but useful example to understand this. The spoiled rich kid. His parents give him freedom without requiring any responsibility. He can ask for money whenever he wants and gets everything he desires without having to pay with any effort. He doesn't need to study hard, work, or do anything around the house. Not cook, not clean. Because his family has money, maids, and chefs. He doesn't even need real friendships, because people hang out with him just to access his money. But one day, when the son spends too much of his father's money, the father cuts him off and kicks him out of the house. The son, now an adult, is abandoned to his own fate. He must live alone, earn a living, and take care of himself. And what happens? A man like this can't function in the world. He has no idea how to take care of himself, because he's never had to. He doesn't know how to study, find a job, make money, clean, cook, or form authentic relationships. He is completely dependent on others. He is a man-child, and as long as he remains dependent, he will never be free. He'll expect others to provide him the same lifestyle his father gave him. And if he finds someone willing, he'll become a slave to that person's expectations. In the worst case, if he finds no one, he'll resort to escapism to try to fulfill needs he cannot meet on his own. I know it's an extreme example, but I hope you're already getting the point. So, is it possible to have freedom without responsibility in the short term? Yes. But in the long term? Most people don't seek real freedom, because real freedom implies responsibility. And most people fear that. Sigmund Freud said, "Not taking responsibility for your own needs comes at a cost, and that cost is your freedom." But if you start taking responsibility for your needs, you become more competent. And by becoming more competent, you become more independent. And by becoming more independent, you gain the ability to rebel. Remember this word, rebellion. Authentic people take responsibility for being who they are, recognizing their freedom to be, as Jean-Paul Sartre said. Now, let's move to the opposite extreme. Imagine a girl who is neither rich nor spoiled, who gradually takes on more and more responsibility for herself and begins to meet her own needs. She starts helping around the house, then gets a part-time job, helps pay household bills, saves diligently, and slowly buys the things she wants. At this point, she's paid for all her own expenses and is completely independent from her parents. You see, she has gradually assumed more and more responsibility, which led her to become competent, Being competent led her to become independent. And by becoming independent, she gained the power to rebel. Why rebel? Imagine that one day she decides to move to another city for a specialization and to live on her own. But when she tells her parents, they say no. Why not stay local and do a different specialization? Stay nearby. But our friend is now a responsible, competent, independent young adult. So she rebels and goes after what she wants. She moves anyway, preserving her freedom. She is free because she knows she is morally responsible for everything she does. Robert Heinlein once said, "I am free because I know that I alone am morally responsible for everything I do." So, what does it mean to be freer? It means having the ability to live authentically. Freedom is the freedom to be yourself. Remember rebellion? It's walking your own path outside the expectations of others. This kind of freedom is only possible when you have the ability to rebel against others, to say no to what others demand from you. And the ability to rebel is only possible when you become independent of others. And independence only comes when you become competent. When you no longer depend on anyone else to meet your needs. Because the more incompetent you are, the more you depend on others. And the more you depend on others, the more you have to suppress your authenticity to meet their expectations. In other words, the more you depend on others, the more you must mold yourself to what they expect from you. You may be praised, admired, or respected, but only for the things you've chosen to do voluntarily.